Hi guys, welcome back to another swing analysis video. This week we've got Paul. He's a very good player, he's a scratch player. So we're going to have a look at his swing. Let's just run through it first of all. So here's a very centered turn here, very compact swing. So, and I think what's really great in his swing is this move here. It's this transition move where he sits into his left side. So he's compressing into his left foot here, and he doesn't open up his shoulders too early, the arms drop. So a really good transition, which is an important part of the golf swing. He tells me his bad shot's a pull, so we're going to have a look at what we can recommend for him to improve his game. So I think, like with everyone, it always comes down to looking at the setup first of all, and I think his ball's just too far forward there at setup. So it's more like, for me, like what a driver setup should be for the ball position. We don't really want to have that ball any further forward than the lead air there. So he starts a little bit too far forward. We'll see from the back angle that he's also a little bit too far away from the ball, and that causes him to get his right arm a bit too straight. His hands are very low and he's too far away with the ball too far forward. Causes him also to get a little bit of a strong grip at the start. So we need to really look at changing his arm structure and his ball position at setup. And then I think the other thing with his setup is his stance is a little bit too wide here, and he has his knees pinched in a bit too much, and that causes him a bit of an issue in how his lower body turns on the backswing. I think what we want him to do is to get this stance a little bit closer together with the feet and still feel that we've got some width there in the knees, so we don't really have these knees pinched in so much. So if we run through the first move on the backswing, so what we want to have a look at here is what his left knee's doing from this angle. So his left knee tends to almost go out a bit towards the target this way. So it's almost like it's pointing out this way a little bit. So it doesn't really rotate correctly. So really what it should be doing is moving forward and slightly in, but it sort of moves out towards the target slightly. So it's like his right hip is a little bit high and his left knee's going out towards the target. And we really want to have, the left knee can definitely move forward, but we don't want it moving towards the target. We want it to be, if anything, get pulled in slightly. And he just he does sort of correct it in his transition here. So it gets pulled in eventually a little bit here. And of course he's got a very good transition. So if we look at, we'll be able to see a bit more on the back angle from down the line as sort of the plane of his swing, but he tends to get his arms and club a little bit too far behind him. The club's a little bit shut at the top there, and that's due to the grip being a little bit strong, and he almost overdoes the idea of having that flat left wrist. He gets the left wrist a little bit bowed there on the backswing. So coming down, like I said before, he's got a really good move here. He tends to get the club coming a little bit too much from the inside, which we'll see from the back angle a little bit more. And that causes him to roll the club a little bit too aggressively, the club face too aggressively through impact. So that could be a cause, I think, of hitting some pulls out to the left there. Okay, so let's have a look at down the line now. So he stands a bit too far away from the ball, and Paul's right arm is just too straight there, and the shaft's almost set too flat. So he needs to feel that the hands are a little bit higher and the shaft's a fraction steeper and standing a bit close to the ball. So he could also probably get this to do that. His body will be a little bit more upright than being too far over this way. So he needs to stand up a little bit, get those arms just slightly bent, get the club just sitting up a little bit more upright, and that's going to make him stand close to the ball. So at the moment where he is there, with the ball also being well left, and with the grip being a bit strong, he tends to get the club coming in this way. Okay, so the club comes inside, and what we really want to have is it more this way. We want the arms, or we want the club, to be more in the middle of the body in that first move here. So we're just setting the club that way, so more in front of the body there. And then from here, as he goes up, so the right wrist tends to bend back on itself a little bit too much here, and that causes the left wrist to bow a little bit, and also he doesn't really get enough wrist hinge. So at that position there, if we compare it to my one here, see my hands would be more in front of the midpoint of my body and the shafts set more up. So my right arm is folding a little bit differently to his one. My right elbow staying a bit more in front. My arm's that way. You can see that that's his upper arm on that angle there. So his arm's sitting in a different way there. So what he needs to do is really, first of all, get that set up right with the ball position and standing closer to the ball with the shaft more upright, and then learn to set it like I'm doing here in the middle of the body that way. And you can almost feel that the wrist is hinging a bit more but not bending back on itself so much, so that won't shut the club face as much. So from there my club's going to work up over my right shoulder there. And for him, because everything comes in a bit too much here, so it's already getting sucked in behind him a little bit there. So at that point his right arm is a bit too much behind his body. His left arm has come across his chest a little bit too much, a little bit too flat with the left arm. My arm will be slightly steeper than my shoulders, and the club will sit more over the right shoulder rather than being behind me. So I think it's a big thing for him is to get the setup right and get that backswing right, and then his downswing can be pretty instinctive. So his downswing moves good. It's just starting in the wrong position there. So he's obviously got the club face closed due to having so much flex here in the back of the right wrist there. So I've also got a little bit of bend in the right wrist there, but it's not as much. So I've got a more neutral club face. So as he goes down, because he's starting in a position where the club and the arms are too far behind him and the club face is shut, he tends to just drop the club almost a little bit too much to the inside here. So if we compare it to my one coming down, you can see the difference in the position there, the delivery. My club head's a bit more out in front of me. That's going to give me a more neutral path coming through, and I'll be able to control the face better through impact. So when the shaft comes too much from the inside here, the face will tend to roll over. So you can see his club face there is pointing more to the left than what my one is, and you can see how his right arm now is really extended and that right wrist is gone flat. So at this point you can sort of see a bit of an angle there still between my right arm and the club, and this all looks sort of more in line. So that's the club, it's going to cause the club face to rotate a little bit quicker. So there's definitely going to be a tendency to hit some shots left with that motion. Okay, so for Paul's setup, what he needs to change is this wide stance with the knees in, with the ball too far away and too far forward, that way. So we want him to get a little bit closer with the feet, keep his gap here on the knees, ball position a little bit further back, so a bit more towards the left ear here. That's how we want him to look from the front angle, from the back. We want him to get away from being too far away this way. He needs to feel like the shaft slightly steeper, the right arm slightly bent, and the body a little more upright, more in that position there. Now on his backswing, what we want to have is that motion with the lower body rather than that left knee pointing out that way. That should be easier for him to do with this narrower stance, and just keep this part of the leg and the hip on the wall, and just let the left knee break in slightly, keeping the gap in the knees. From the back angle, we'll be able to see what he wants to do with the club here, and that is keep the club sort of between his forearms here. And again, that's going to be easier to do with this position of the arms rather than this position. So if he can get his arms this way and just keep the club, it's going to feel a bit more one piece to him, keep the club between the arms to this position. Okay, so it's going to feel for him that the left wrist is a little bit cupped here at this position here too. Okay, so we tended to get a bit too much hinge going backwards in the right wrist that way, and we want really for him to feel it's more hinging up. Okay, so from this angle here, we want him to get this way, and then it's going to be more of the hinging up this way for him rather than hinging back and getting the left hand too bowed this way. That's what's closing his club face. So if we can get him in that position with a slightly cupped wrist, then with this hinging up, you should be able to get the club up more over his right shoulder this way, rather than his swing was getting this way, that way too much. We want him to be here, bit of cupping in the wrist, keeping the club between the arms, in the middle of the body there, and then letting it hinge up, a bit more over the right shoulder that way with a more neutral club face. Okay. Now as for his downswing, you can pretty much leave it as it is, as long as he's coming from a different position here at the top. So it's, for him, it's all about getting the setup, getting the backswing right. If he can get into a better slot here at the top of the backswing, he can still make his move across, that compression move that he makes, and the club won't be coming from so far behind him.